What is going on, college basketball fans, and welcome back to the Danny Hoops podcast. This is episode 8, and as always, we will be posting the Danny Hoops podcast every Thursday at noon, but it will be up as a video after if you guys want to watch it after. All the podcasts are in a playlist on my channel, so if you go to the channel, go under the playlist tab. You can see all 8 episodes of the podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping a little bit of the bigger storyline games that went down so far this week. And then we're going to get into some bracketology talk and kind of just look over, break down Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology, talk about who can move up or down, talk about who can make deep runs, talk about some of the upset matchups that I am looking to pick if the season ended today, and also who should be higher or lower at this point. I believe his bracketology did come out a few days ago, so maybe some adjustments need to be made. We will be talking about all of that. And then I want to quickly go over the top 15 teams in the country and talk about how many of the top 15 teams can realistically win the national championship this season. It seems like this season, more than ever, the championship is wide open for somebody to come out of nowhere and grab it. A lot of the top teams are losing. Some of the top teams, I don't know if I trust in March. So it's very wide open for maybe even a higher seed to go out and win March Madness this season. And then, of course, at the end of the podcast, I will give you guys my top 5 National Player of the Year contenders and my top 3 national championship contenders at this point in the season. And then we will take your questions in the end. If you guys want your guys' question answered in next week's podcast, all you got to do is sometime on Wednesday before like 10 p.m., go over to YouTube, go to the community tab, and I will have a post asking for questions for the Danny Hoops podcast. Put a good question in there. More than likely, I will answer it on the day after on Thursday's episode. So let's get it started. Before I got to go quickly do some shouts. Follow me on Twitter at 6mandanny. That is the number 6 man Danny on Twitter. I am very active on the Twitter. If you want to, you can ask me and you can join a college basketball group chat. We got over 10 people in there right now, so it's a very good time. And also, if you guys want to donate and support the channel financially, you can donate either through the YouTube app by clicking the donate button, or you can or the super chat button, or you can go to my Cash App, and my Cash App is Dannyology with the number 1 at the end. That is Dannyology1 if you guys want to support me that way. All donations are much appreciated, and I will be sure to give you a shout out in a stream or a podcast when I can if you guys do that. So let's get into the actual podcast. So, quick recap of this week's big time games, and we'll start with some of the games that I just watched tonight. Quick shout out to WVU getting their first Big 12 road win in this season and last season. They are yet to get a Big 12 win, and that was snapped tonight. So huge shout out to WVU going on the road to Lubbock and beating Texas Tech. Texas Tech falls to 0-8 in conference play. So Alabama survives Mississippi State at home, beats them by 3. Mississippi State falls to 1-7 in SEC play, and they are going to have to face a very hot TCU team in the Big 12 SEC Challenge here coming up. Also, Xavier defeats UConn yet again, sweeps them in the season series 2-0. This one on the road in UConn. And Xavier looks like the real deal. UConn is struggling. I'd like to know from you guys, can UConn turn things around and become that national championship contender we all saw they had potential to be? Let me know. But Xavier, they look for real. Sully Boom and Colby Jones, that guard tandem combined for, I think, 46 points tonight. Very good duo there. Xavier has one of the best starting fives in the country. Also tonight, we had a big time upset in the jungle. Auburn's 28-game winning streak at home comes to an end to Texas A&M, who is now 7-1 in SEC play and really turning up. This will be a win that could really help them get crack open that spot and solidify their spot in the March Madness tournament. What a huge win for Auburn. And Auburn just last week, got the title of longest home game winning streak, which was at 28 since Gonzaga lost to Loyola Marymount the other week. And that snapped their 76 home game winning streak. So now the new holder of that record right now is UCLA with a current streak of 19 games won in a row in their home court. And right behind them is actually Kent State with 18. So if UCLA loses at home, Kent State is looking like the new holder of that record. Maybe it's a curse. If UCLA loses soon, we'll have to look out for Kent State next. So also Houston with a big bounce back win. Quick mention for them. They went on the road and defeated a very good Central Florida team by double digits after their loss to Temple last week. So a very good bounce back win for the Cougs. Duke loses another ACC road game a few nights ago at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech snaps a big losing streak ever since they got into conference play by defeating the Blue Devils. It seems like Duke just cannot win on the road, and I worry about this team a lot when we get to March Madness. Not sure how far this Blue Devils team can get. And two more big storylines from this week, both coming from the Big 12. We had Kansas losing their third straight game in a row in Waco against Baylor. Kansas looking to bounce back in the Big 12 SEC Challenge against Kentucky. Also, if you guys are looking for my Big 12 SEC Challenge predictions, my winner and score predictions are already up on the channel as a video. So make sure you guys go check that out after this podcast if you guys are interested in that. Also, Iowa State defeats Kansas State at home in Ames, and they now are in sole possession of first place in the Big 12. The Cyclones have been a really good team this year, and TJ Otzelberger definitely a sleeper to win Coach of the Year this season. So that pretty much does it. I do want to give a quick shout out to my personal game of the week. The best game that I've watched so far this week was New Mexico at Nevada, a double overtime thriller. And in the first overtime, Nevada forced a lot of turnovers that included a 5-second violation, a jump ball, and were able to climb back into the game and force a second overtime where they then went on to win. So a big time effort for Nevada at home. The Wolfpack get a big time win against New Mexico, who was ranked 25, and that was Nevada's first win against a ranked opponent, and I think since 2018. So shout out to the Wolfpack for getting that W. So it is time now to get into our breakdown, bracketology talk. So let's pull that up right now. I will pull it up on the screen. So if you guys are just listening, that is okay too. I will break it down, but we are going to show my screen here for you guys and show Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology that came out on January 23rd. So just 2 days ago, as of recording this video. So a little bit has changed. We'll talk about what I think should be changed in the breakdown as well. So our top overall seed is the Purdue Boilermakers. No surprise there. First team out is Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been on a big time losing streak. Well, not a big time losing streak, but they've been getting blown out. Getting blown out by Oklahoma State is not a good look. So I definitely agree with that. Last team in is Penn State. I think I agree with that too. I think usually Joe Lunardi is pretty accurate. I like those for sure. Last four buys, we got Boise State, Maryland, Pittsburgh making the cut. They just got a big win over Wake Forest. And Ohio State still getting in for a buy. I don't agree with that, however. Let me know. Do you guys think that at this point in the season, Ohio State deserves to have the last bye in the tournament. I don't agree with that. I don't think Ohio State should be in the tournament. Last four in, he has Arizona State, Northwestern, Kentucky, Penn State. I would definitely have Arizona State or Northwestern. Really, probably all four of these teams ahead of Ohio State. And first four out, he has Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and USC, three Big 12 teams along with USC. And next four out, he has Nevada, Utah State, Florida, and Wake Forest. Wake Forest just took a loss to Pitt, so I'd assume they might drop down even further. Nevada with the big win over New Mexico, like I mentioned before. I think that they might climb in a little bit. West Virginia with a road win over Texas Tech today. Does that get them in for now, or do they have to beat Auburn this weekend? I could see that for sure. So these are teams looking to try to make the cut. Arizona State and USC really struggling as they are very good teams, but because they play in such a weak conference, they're going to have to win most of their games if they want to solidify their spot in the tournament. So let's start up here with our South region here in Louisville. Our top overall seed is Purdue, and he has them facing either Morgan State or St. Francis, PA. And to be honest, I don't know too much about those schools, so I'm not really going to talk about that matchup too much. I think Purdue should get that one pretty easily, right? And then we got Arkansas as the 8 seed versus 9 seed Florida Atlantic. This is an interesting one because Arkansas, a solid team, if they were able to defeat one of the best mid-majors in college basketball in the FAU Owls, could they defeat Purdue in the second round? That's something I want to look at whenever we're looking at this bracketology is who do I think has a good route to go far in this tournament? Right now, I'm really not liking Purdue's path to get to the Elite Eight or further because just looking at it, they should get out the first round pretty easily, but then they're looking at either one of the best mid majors in college basketball or Arkansas, and Arkansas is not an easy out. We've seen that year in and year out. Last year, they made it to the Elite Eight. They are very solid. Eric Musselman shows up in March. I would not want to see them in round two if I am the top overall seed. But then, even if they get past them and make the Sweet 16, they're looking at most likely, in my opinion, Xavier, who is a very strong 4 seed. I know that they lost to DePaul, but they have a really solid starting 5 and 2 really good lengthy defensive guards who can also score in Sully Boom and Colby Jones. And I think that they could dominate that matchup against Purdue. Against Purdue's freshman guards there, and also Jack Nungy is not a small guy. Might be able to body up Zach Edey a little bit. I like Xavier a little bit in that matchup. Shout out to Marshall. I do think Marshall upsetting Xavier is cool, maybe a possibility. Xavier does not have the best bench. Marshall is a sleeper to get a upset win here in March Madness. Looking at this 12-5, though, I really like this 12-5 matchup between Duke as the 5 seed and Kent State as the 12 seed. I think I would 100% take Kent State to defeat Duke in my main bracket, and I think I would have Xavier defeating Purdue in the Sweet 16. So that is a little bit of my preview for this. Also, quick mention, we will be doing a updated bracket predictions video. I know a lot of you guys love those videos. We will be coming out with one of those next week with Joe Lunardi's updated bracketology that he comes out with next week. So, quick mention of that. Bottom half of this region, it looks like we have Michigan State as the 6 versus Pitt as the 11 seed. That would be a very fun matchup in the first round. I think I have to go with Tom Izzo to defeat Jeff Capel there in the first round, 100%. In a matchup like that, I think it'll come down to coaching. Gonzaga as a 3 seed versus Eastern Washington. We got NC State as a 7 seed, very interesting, and Missouri as a 10 seed, Kansas State as a 2 seed, moving up. I'm actually surprised. I thought that they might be a 1 seed, but it looks like he's giving the 1 seed to Tennessee over Kansas State. Although this is before Kansas State lost to Iowa State. So should Iowa State be a 1 seed now that they are first place in the Big 12? In my personal opinion, I think whoever is first place in the Big 12 conference deserves at least the last number 1 seed in March Madness. I'm pretty sure last year we had 2 1 seeds in the Big 12 in Baylor and Kansas. The Big 12 is just such a strong conference and is so far ahead of most other conferences. I believe the top seed in the Big 12 should be a 1 seed. And right now, that is the Iowa State Hawkeyes, who in this bracket are a 3 seed in the West region. I got to think after that win over Kansas State, they will be moving up, especially if they can get a win over Missouri this weekend in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So, who do I like out of this bottom region based on matchups? I think I might take Michigan State to defeat Gonzaga here. I mean, they played earlier in this year on the carrier ship, and it was a close game. I think in a rematch, I trust Tom Izzo in a rematch for sure. And out of this bottom half, I think I'd like Kansas State. I think that they get a really good draw all the way until they would face who I have Xavier coming out right here. I think Kansas State has a pretty good draw. I think that they defeat Missouri or NC State in the second round. I'm not too high on Gonzaga this year, so I really like either Kansas State to come out or Michigan State, maybe as a 6 seed coming out of that bottom half. Let's head to the Midwest region in Kansas City, where we have Alabama as a 1 seed. I think a lot of us did not expect Alabama to be this good. They have the best freshman class in the nation. Shout out to Bama. I just made a video about them. They pulled off the W today against Mississippi State, where they were trailing most of that game. So shout out to Bama for pulling it out. Full video and breakdown on their success this season up on the channel a few days ago. But who do I like coming out of this top region? Iowa as an 8 seed. Interesting. I think Iowa might do better in the tournament as a lower seed than a higher because they always seem to choke as a higher seed. But at least now, if they lose, it won't necessarily be a choke. But I think I might like the matchup for New Mexico to defeat Iowa in this one. Here's a good question, though. Do you guys think that the Mountain West will be able to do really well in this year's tournament, considering they went, 0-3 or 0-4 last year? Interesting, because in the Mountain West is super fun to watch. Let's just see if they can get it done in March, man. We have UConn sitting as a 5 seed, and after losing at home to Xavier once again, I think you got to move UConn down. I think we all see and saw the potential that UConn had this season, but I think you still have to move them down after another loss. I know Xavier is a very good team, but you still got to move them down. You still got to move them down, man. Could we see UConn potentially as a 7, 8 seed make it to the national championship and potentially win it? I don't know. That's actually interesting because we haven't seen a higher seed win the national championship, I think, since 7 seed UConn in, was that 2014? So could UConn do it again as a lower seed? I don't know. They have the team for it. We'll see if they can start to show signs of turning things around. Okay. Kentucky versus Penn State in the last 4 in game. That is an interesting matchup right there. Baylor as a 4 seed have climbed their way back up. Like I mentioned earlier, defeated Kansas at home and are now on a 5-game win streak in a tough Big 12 conference. So out of this top region, this is a stacked region. You have Alabama, you have UConn, who, if they're on their game come March Madness, a very tough out and a very solid team. You have Baylor, who's starting to get hot. New Mexico, one of the best mid majors in college basketball. You have Iowa, who has Chris Murray, a really good player in college basketball, but I don't really trust Iowa too much. So the top part of this bracket is very stacked. And honestly, I would love to see Alabama UConn rematch because I think Alabama has gotten a lot better since then, and UConn seems to be playing a lot worse. So that would be a fun matchup to see a rematch. And I think whoever wins that would probably come out of here, but don't sleep on Baylor as well. Bottom half of this region, I already see six-seeded St. Mary's, and it looks like the two six seeds so far are very strong in St. Mary's and Michigan State. If you guys have been watching the channel, you're been subscribed for a little bit now, you know I'm high on the St. Mary's team. I think that they can get a win or two in March. I think they're definitely clapping Ohio State in the first round. Come on now. That is a easy pick, 100% guarantee. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think Ohio State should be in the tournament at this point. They need to pick up some wins in the Big Ten Conference and start to show some consistency or something, man. Ohio State does not deserve that spot. Uh, Texas as a 3 seed. See, I could see potential for Texas getting upset in the second round as well. So I could see St. Mary's defeating Ohio State and Texas back to back in that one. The very bottom of this bracket, I see Boise State. I could see, I don't know. I think that's an easy path for Arizona to come out right there. And then Arizona versus St. Mary's in a West Coast battle in the Sweet 16. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. That's kind of what I'm looking at. I would definitely go with that in my bracket. All right, let's look at these bottom half teams here in the East region in New York. So interesting here. Tennessee as the 1 seed. Like I mentioned earlier, I would I think that the top team in the Big 12 deserves a 1 seed, but that is my personal opinion. Let me know what you guys think about that. I don't think 2 SEC teams should be in, and I don't think they will be, considering they'll have to play each other. But I just think the top seed, one of the 1 seeds should go to the top team in the Big 12, and right now that's Iowa State. So I'm sticking by that opinion. But Tennessee, let's see their chances of coming out of this bracket because we all know Tennessee has been known to choke when we get to the March Madness tournament. So can Tennessee finally, can this be the year that they get, to at least the Elite Eight or beyond to the Final Four? I don't know, man. I don't know if they can do it. I feel like they're always really good in the regular season, so it's hard to really buy into them. Siena, I believe, is probably the best 16 seed I've seen in a while. Siena, they always have a solid team there in Siena. Like not a super good team, but they're always solid. So I like the Siena Saints. I don't know. I don't think they'll be able to pull off the upset 16 over a 1. But if I were to pick a 16 over a 1, I think I would pick Siena over Tennessee, especially because how much Tennessee chokes in March Madness. Then you got Clemson versus Wisconsin in the 8 and 9. I think I like Clemson in that matchup. That's a cool matchup there. They both have really tall, really good big men on their team. It would be nice to see them matched up against each other. I think out of the teams that I'm seeing in here, the winner in the second round of Rutgers and Marquette is probably going to the Elite Eight. I'm not going to lie. I think Marquette could definitely defeat Tennessee, and that's a cool matchup because Marquette is a team that is coached there by Shaka Smart. He likes to get transition points, get force turnovers, whereas Rutgers, they're a really good defensive team. So I think I would take Marquette to get to the Elite Eight out of this region. I like the way Marquette plays this year. I don't trust Tennessee in March Madness, so I really like their chances to come out. Looking at the 5-12 upset in this one, VCU has been heating up lately in the A10 conference, so I could definitely see why Joe Lunardi predicted VCU to win that league and get a bid into the tournament. I'm not mad at that at all. I do think it's quite possible for them to upset Rutgers. We've seen last year a A10 team who was a 12 seed upset a Big 10 team who was a 5 seed when Richmond defeated Iowa. So another team from Richmond there and VCU, can they defeat a Big 10 team in Rutgers? I do think it's possible. It would be a shocking pick because I do think Rutgers is a good team, but it is one that me myself I would pick because I can sense that kind of stuff. I can sense that even though matchup wise and how they've played all year, it doesn't really make sense to pick VCU in that matchup. But because it's March Madness, because the Big Ten chokes, because it's the A10, and why not have an upset? That would probably happen. That would probably happen, and then Marquette will defeat VCU in the second round, and on their way to defeat Tennessee and make the Elite Eight out of the top part of that East region. What was the 5-12 seed in the Midwest? We had UConn versus either Kentucky, or Penn State. Honestly, it depends on what UConn team we get come March Madness. What UConn team we get. Upsets I like in the Midwest region. I forgot to mention. I don't really like the upsets here in this one. The best one would be probably Boise over Illinois with the 10 over the 7, but that's not really an upset. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with the way UConn's playing now. I'd take Penn State or Kentucky over UConn. That's probably the best upset pick in that one. In the South region, I really like Kent State over Duke as a 12 over a 5. Marshall over Xavier is a sleeper one, but I think I'd still have to go with Xavier, even though in my heart I really want to pick Marshall. Other first round upset picks, I think I would take Missouri over NC State. I think Missouri has more guard depth, and even though NC State does have really good guards, I think Missouri, or even though NC State does have two really good guards, I think Missouri just has the better depth on that team, and they pull off the win 10 over 7 there. Yeah, but other than that, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. In the East, if I were to pick a 16 over a 1, I would pick Siena over Tennessee. I'm not gonna lie. If that turns out to be a matchup come March Madness, and at least one of my brackets, I will pick Siena over Tennessee. Um, Other than that, VCU over Rutgers. I mean, I know I'm saying that 12 over 5s for all of these, but that is just the type of matchup that it would happen in, man. It truly is. I don't see Seattle defeating Marquette. Seattle's not that great. Um, I could see Arizona State or Northwestern maybe getting by Auburn in the first round. I could definitely see that being possible. I don't like the 14 seeds this year, guys. I really don't like the 14 seeds because I was kind of looking. But let's go ahead and get into the bottom half of the East bracket. So we have Auburn. I did say I think, Arizona State, Northwestern, they do have a chance against Auburn, but I like Auburn in that one. The 6 seeds are very strong. The 6 seeds are very strong. I see Miami over here as well. Miami, Auburn, St. Mary's, and Michigan State. The 6 seeds are strong. Uh, I would pick a 6 seed to make the Final Four. One of these 6 seeds would make the Final Four. Providence down here as a 7 seed. I think Providence deserves a little bit more respect. In my opinion, and I know Joe Lunardi, these are accurate, these are stat based, so it's not like his personal opinion necessarily. They're just based on accuracy. So I don't blame Joe, but I do not think Providence should be a lower seed than UConn. I think Providence should be a 5 seed, whereas UConn should be the 7 seed, in my opinion. But Providence versus Memphis, whoever wins that one, I could see giving Kansas a very good run for their money in the second round. That would be a really fun matchup to watch right there. Who do I like coming out of the bottom region? I think I got to go Kansas. I think I got to go Kansas versus Marquette in the Elite Eight. That's kind of what I'm thinking right there. Let's head over to our last region there in the West region of our bracket in Las Vegas, where Houston is our final number 1 seed. And I kind of like the draw that actually, hold up. That is a very fire 8-9 matchup. I talked about earlier. Can a 7, 8, 9 seed win the national championship this year? Well, whoever wins between North Carolina and Creighton in the first round, if they can defeat Houston in the second round, they could win the championship. They could win the championship. And like I said earlier, one of my brackets, I will have Siena defeating Tennessee in the first round. One of my brackets, I would have either North Carolina or Creighton making it at least to the Final Four as an 8 and a 9 seed. Okay, that is a really good matchup for the first round. Whoever wins that game, I could see making a deep run. And I know they have Houston second round. I think it could be done. I think Houston could get upset in the second round by one of those teams. It would be a really good game. It would be an amazing game, man. Next up, we have Indiana versus Oral Roberts. Man, these 12-5s are amazing. Joe Lunardi's bracket is so much better than Jerry Palm's. Real quick, like last bracketology predictions I did, I filled out Jerry Palm's bracket, and Joe Lunardi's are so much better. Man, these 12-5s are amazing. Oral Roberts has been killing it lately, and it's looking like they're going to sneak back into the tournament with Max Abemus, and they pulled off a 15-2 upset the year they made it. Can they pull off a 12-5? I believe so. Indiana has been turning up lately, though, if they get Xavier Johnson back. I think this would be my least likely 12-5 upset pick. And I know it would be a popular one because a lot of people remember, a lot of people that only watch March Madness and don't really watch the season remember Oral Roberts as a 15 seed making the Sweet 16. They're like, they are going to do it again. But I say not so fast. I like the other 3 12-5s more than this one. I still think this one is definitely possible to happen, but I like the other 3 matchups better. Then we got TCU versus UC Santa Barbara. And honestly, I don't like the 13 seeds. And it's crazy because with how crazy of a year that we have had in college basketball, a 13 seed is definitely beating a 4 this season and possibly a 14 seed over a 3 at least. I mean, the past 2 seasons we've had 15-2s, right? We're getting at least a 14-3 again this year with how chaotic and wide open it is this year. If I had to pick any 13-4, I would take Marshall over Xavier. I think Marshall is a very good team. They play in a weak conference, but if they can make the tournament, they could do some damage. UC Santa Barbara, I just really don't like the matchup against TCU. I think TCU is just too good, man. And Xavier's really good as well. The 4 seeds, they're really solid right now, man. But we're definitely getting at least one 13-4 and at least one 14-3 this season. Okay. But out of the top region, who would I like to come out of this? This is a stacked region. I must say. I mean, I think TCU makes it to the Sweet 16, gets past Indiana in the second round. But the top region between North Carolina, Creighton, and Houston, it's tough. I think If this were the matchup, if this were to be the matchups, I think in my main bracket, I might have North Carolina upsetting Houston in the second round. And I know that might be crazy, but it happens every year, man. A one seed loses to an 8 or a 9 seed in the second round almost every year. And this could be the one, man. And I know a lot of people are high on Houston, but I don't know, man. I don't like the matchup. I think Armando Bacot could have a big game in that one. I really do think North Carolina could do it. So I like North Carolina to come out of it and face TCU in the Sweet 16. That would be an amazing matchup. Okay, bottom half of our South region, which is our last region, we do have Miami as our 6th seed. Like I said, the 6 seeds are very strong this season. Maryland as our 11 seed. I like Miami in that one, but Maryland does have, like, if they can turn it on, they could get a win in March. I could definitely see it, but they've been so bad lately. I think Miami whips them. Iowa State as a 3 seed, like I mentioned earlier, top team in the Big 12 right now. And I know this came out before they defeated Kansas State, but I believe the top team in the Big 12 should be a 1 seed. Iowa State is a 3 seed here. I think that they defeat Colgate in this one, but Colgate, they've made the last few tournaments. They have a solid team, but Iowa State too good in this, too good to get upset there. But if I did have to pick if I did have to pick a 14 over a 3, guys, I think I would probably take Colgate over Iowa State. I think I would probably take Colgate over Iowa State. Looking at the other matchups, Southern Illinois over Texas, possibly. Southern Illinois over Texas, possibly. I actually think that that might be the most likely one, and I don't think it's that likely. Um, but it's possible we get a 15 over a 2. I don't know. I don't see it, guys. The 2 seeds are strong. The 2 seeds are strong. Okay, let's get into next up, we got San Diego State as our 7 seed versus Charleston as the 10 seed. A little mid-major battle to make it into the second round. And that would be a really fun matchup, man. That would be a really fun matchup. The 7-10s are always super hard to pick. It's really 50-50. Usually 2 7 seeds and 2 10 seeds will win in March Madness. That would be an awesome matchup. But who would I have coming out of the bottom half of this region? I really like Iowa State. I like the 6 seeds this year. Miami, they're going to turn up in March, I think. But I think I'd have to go with either I think I'd have to go with UCLA. I think I'd have to go with UCLA in this one, and then North Carolina to come out on in the top half. But if Creighton turns up, they could beat North Carolina. That is a really good first round matchup there in the 8 versus 9. So let me know what you guys think about this bracketology. Let me know who has the easiest route to the national championship based on this bracket. I really like Marquette's route in this bracket to the Elite Eight at least. Um, having being a 4 seed and most likely having to face a 1 seed in the Sweet 16, there's no 1 seed I would rather face than Tennessee. So I think Marquette could handle Tennessee, and I think matchup wise, they match up really well with them. So looking at the conference breakdown, let's check out all the conferences here and what we did. Ooh, I did not mean to do that. Okay. All right. Just kind of the main conferences here. They have more than one team, and then we have the Big Ten in first place with 10 teams. I don't agree. I guess I do agree with that, but definitely Ohio State should not be in the NCAA tournament at this point. Big 12 in at 8 teams, but both of the other 2 teams that did not make it are in the next 4 out. And then we have the ACC with 7 teams and getting a lot more teams in than last year. SEC with only 5 teams. That's probably the biggest surprise to me out of the conference breakdown is SEC only having 5 teams in. I don't think I saw Texas A&M with a big win over Auburn tonight. I could definitely see Texas A&M getting a crack in the tournament in the next bracketology. Big East also with 5. Mountain West, the top mid-major conference with 3. Tying with the Pac-12 with 3. All-American Conference with 2. And the West Coast Conference coming in with 2 as well. So that is going to do it for our bracketology talk. Next portion of the podcast, before we get into my top player of the year candidates, my top national championship contenders, and also your guys' questions, I wanted to talk about a little bit about how many teams realistically can win it all from the current top 15 AP poll. And this is an interesting question, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we are actually starting to run out of time. I try to keep these podcasts within an hour, around 50 minutes to an hour. So to get to all your guys' questions, I'm going to quickly go through the top 15 teams in the AP poll and let you guys know with some brief analysis and reasoning why I think they can or can't win the national championship this year. Because like I said, it's wide open this year. A lot of top teams are losing. All the favorites are either losing, playing in close games. It's going to be a very fun tournament, guys. If you guys are not subscribed yet, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and join us for this ride because it's going to be a very fun year. So our number 1 team, we do have Purdue. I think Purdue can win the national championship this year. I think they can. And it's hard for me to say that because they do have a really good team, but they do have freshman guards, and freshman guards in March Madness usually don't perform well, but they have performed well over and over again, and this team is winning over and over again. And when the tournament is so wide open and they have a beast in Zach Edey on their squad, I think it's definitely possible that they can win the championship in a year where it's so wide open. So I'm going to have to say yes on Purdue. Number 2 team, we do have Alabama. Like I said earlier, they pulled out a squeaker tonight against Mississippi State, staying undefeated in the SEC Conference. They have Oklahoma this weekend in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Alabama, yes, I think that they can win the championship this year as well. They have been one of the hottest, probably the hottest team in the country up to this point in the season. And yeah, they have losses to teams like UConn and Gonzaga. Those are solid teams, and UConn been struggling as of late. But I think that Alabama has improved since that UConn game, the Gonzaga game. They let up a lot of points in that one. It worries me a little bit. But like I said, when in a time where it's so wide open, I definitely could see Alabama winning it all this year. And not football, but basketball. Number 3 team, we do have the Houston Cougars. Real quickly, yes, I think Houston can win the championship this year. I think that they can make the Final Four. I worry about Houston winning it all this year. I don't know if I can pick Houston to win it all this year. I worry about them a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I think they're a little bit overhyped. Coming from, I don't know why. Something tells me Houston's going to make the Final Four in Houston because the Final Four is being hosted in Houston, Texas. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to win it all this season. But I will say they definitely have that potential. So I will say they can. So I will say yes to my question. They can win it. Number 4, we do have Tennessee, and this is actually going to be my first no. I don't think Tennessee can win the national championship this year, even though it is so wide open. They have really good guards, but if they have one bad shooting night, they're getting bounced from the tournament. They play really good defense. You find a team that is shooting hot, getting out transition, like I mentioned earlier, like a Marquette. I think Tennessee's out of there, and I don't see them going all the way and winning the championship. I'm going to say no to Tennessee. Number 5, we have Kansas State. And this one was the toughest one for me so far. Now, Kansas State, you could say maybe they have a weakness down low. I just watched Osun Asani on Iowa State close out the game against them. I don't know if they have the interior defense whenever they have to go against a Zach Edey, a Drew Timme, a Armando Baycott, even an Oscar Shibwe if they have to play Kentucky in the first round. Like, I don't know if they have that interior defense to be able to stop a really good big man or just a really solid big man with a solid team around them like Iowa State. So I'm going to have to say no on Kansas State winning it all. Can they make the Final Four? Yes. They have a really good team. But I worry about the matchups, man. I worry about the matchups when it gets down to it. Marquise Noel, he's still been performing really good in games, but not being like the superstar caliber player that we've seen. I could see this is kind of my comparison right now for Kansas State. I could see Marquise Noel going on a Carson Edwards type run in the tournament, making it to the Elite Eight, having an amazing run where everybody's like, wow, he's so much fun to watch. This is must-see TV every round, but then them getting bounced in around the Elite Eight. That's kind of what I'm expecting for Kansas State. So I'm going to have to say no on this one. Second no in a row. Okay, we're going to have to speed it up here a little bit so I can get to your guys' questions. Number 6, Arizona. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. They have a very solid team. They have good shooters around, in my opinion, maybe the best front court in the nation in Turbellis in Ballo. So I'm going to say yes on Arizona. Virginia, yes. I think that they have a veteran team on that team. Freshman Isaac McNeely is starting to turn up for this Virginia team. They also have Vanderplas off the bench, solid veteran team, very good defensive team, a coach who has got it done before. I think Virginia can do it again. UCLA, I'm going to say yes. UCLA and Arizona, I'm saying yes, even though they play in a weak Pac-12 conference. They have really solid teams, and I've said this over the course of this season. I believe this is the best, maybe the best UCLA team under Mike Curran. I think it's better than those Johnny Juzang teams the past few years. Number 9, we do have Kansas. And Kansas, I'm going to say yes once again. They pretty much replaced Ochai Abachi with Jalen Wilson. He's playing that role. Daquan Harris is an excellent defender and facilitator. KJ Adams has really broke out this year and filled that hole as the big man. And yeah, I'm going to say yes. Kansas can go back-to-back and win the championship this year. Number 10, we do have Texas. I'm going to say no on Texas. I don't think Texas is going to be able to win it all this year. I think maybe if, the Chris Beard situation didn't go down and they still had him, I could see it potentially happening, but I don't see Texas winning it all this year. Number 11, TCU. And TCU may be a shocker here, but I'm going to say yes. I could see TCU actually winning the championship this year. And it's hard to do that because head coach Jamie Dixon, a really good head coach, but he's had really good Pitt teams before when he was the head coach at Pitt. And they've had a Pitt team that were a 1 seed before, and they just didn't get that far, man. They didn't get that far. So I don't know if I can trust TCU, but with how hot they're playing right now, I think at this point in the season, I'm going to have to say yes. Iowa State next up, and this hurts to say, but I'm actually going to say no. I don't think that Iowa State can win it all. They're kind of in the same boat as Kansas State to me, whereas I just feel like they can make the Final Four, but I don't see them being able to win it all this season. Number 13, we do have Xavier. I'm going to say no on Xavier winning it all. I actually see potential for Xavier to be upset in the first or second round, but I also see potential for them to make the Elite Eight. I don't know if I see Xavier quite in the Final Four, but they do have a really solid starting five. I just think that Xavier has a weak bench, man, and I think it's going to cost them in one of these games. 14, Gonzaga. No, I don't think this Gonzaga team, this is one of the weakest Gonzaga teams in the past few years. I'm going to say they can't win it all. Number 15, Auburn. No, they just got upset by Texas A&M at home, and I think they're going to lose to my boys, West Virginia, this Saturday. I don't think they can win the Natty this season. So that'll do it for that portion of the podcast. Kind of had to rush through that part. I tried to still give some brief analysis in my reasoning. Real quick, I'll name some of my Player of the Year candidates. We do have Zach Edey still as my top candidate to win the AP National Player of the Year. Next up, I do actually have Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller, best freshman in the country. He's definitely going to win Freshman of the Year at this point. And Brandon Miller has been solid. He's coming in at number 2 for me in this week's podcast. Next, we have Azuolas Tubelis. Azuolas Tubelis, kind of crawled down my list a little bit because Arizona was losing to teams like Washington State, but he's back in it. They picked up a big win over UCLA. He's a big reason why. Fourth, I do have Jalen Wilson from Kansas. I know they're on a 3-game losing streak, but it is of no fault of Jalen Wilson. He has been trying to carry this Kansas team to getting a win the past 3 games, and I think they're going to be able to defeat Kentucky this weekend and get back on track. So Jalen Wilson's in here. And number 5, I do have Drew Timme. Drew Timme's just been putting up unreal numbers, dominating teams week in and week out. Drew Timme has to come in here at number 5. Some honorable mentions. I do think Mike Miles has been playing his butt off, but maybe, starting to work his way up in here. That's really my only honorable mention at this point. Let me know who got snubbed from my list this week. Top 3 national championship contenders this week. Number 1, I actually have the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm starting to get really high on this team. They are being consistent. They are undefeated in the SEC. Very impressive, and they have the best freshman class in the nation. They have 4 really good guards that can play. They have a shot blocker. They have forwards who can stretch the floor. I mean, this team, improve a little bit on the defense, and they're getting better at that every game, man. And this Alabama team, they could definitely get far in this year's tournament. At number 2, I actually do have the Houston Cougars, and Houston is interesting because Houston did lose to Alabama at home, but I do think in a rematch it would be a really good game, and Houston could defeat them in a rematch if they were to meet in the Final Four or the championship game. And my third team, I do actually have Virginia as my third team, and I usually try to go with, since I only do top 3, I could have went with Purdue or someone like that. It's kind of boring, but for my third team, I usually like to, pick a little bit of a sleeper. I know they're still a top 10 team, and a lot of people have saw their potential this season, but I got Virginia back up in my top 3. Veteran team, like I mentioned, Isaac McNeely, the freshman, he's been turning up. Vanderplas, one of the best 6-mans in the country. So I have Virginia coming in at number 3. Real quick, we will get to your guys' questions before we end episode 8 of the Danny Hoops podcast. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at 6mandanny, very active on the Twitter. And if you guys would like to support the channel financially, it would be much appreciated. You can donate to me on Cash App. My cash tag is Dannyology1. That is Dannyology with the number 1 at the end. Or you could also do a super chat on the YouTube page if you guys want to do that. All donations are much appreciated, and I will be sure to give you guys a shout out whenever I get the chance if you do that. So, first question coming in. Quick drink real quick. First question coming in from Rogue Jedi. He asked, which team not in my bracketology could make the tournament by the end of the season? This is one of the questions that stood out to me. Really good question by Rogue Jedi. Shout out to you. And this is a good question, right? We just saw who are the teams just on the outside of making the tournament. And I have a few, and I kind of want to take it a step farther. I don't want to pick teams that are just on the outside, but teams that might have a little bit of a further path to making the tournament that I think might be able to do so if they can turn their season around very, very soon. And I'm going to say maybe, I know they just took a loss today to Pitt, but I'm going to say Wake Forest could be a team there with Tyrese Appleby who could maybe try to sneak their way into the tournament if they can start to build a streak there in the ACC. We saw that Joe Lunardi had about, 7 teams from the ACC making the tournament. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that if Wake Forest can get on a little bit of a win streak, they can get a bid. Also, I think Michigan could. I think Michigan has a very talented team, and they could do a late run in a very chaotic Big Ten conference and try to steal a bid this season. So those are 2 teams that I could see maybe trying to make their way into March Madness by the end of the season. Very good question. Thank you, Rogue. Next question coming in here from TPM, and he asked, thoughts on Oral Roberts right now, and can they make another surprising run? This is a good question. I kind of mentioned it earlier when we were doing our bracketology talk, that 12-5 matchup was probably the least likely one that I would pick. I think it would be a very popular one, and I think it would be a bust because out of all those 12 seeds, I think Oral Roberts was the least talented team, and I know they have Max Abemus. They have a really good shot blocker on their team. They do have a good team, but I don't know if they can make another surprising run. I think as a 12 seed, they could pull off one win in a 12-5 upset. I don't see them making it to the Sweet 16 like they did a few years ago, though. Very good question. Thank you, TPM. Next question coming in here from my man, Will ND, and he asked, which transfer acquisition has made the biggest impact so far this season? This was a really good question. I appreciate it coming in here from Will. And yeah, this was a really good question. I had to think about this one a little bit, but there has been a lot of really good transfers this season. Off the top of my head, we got Kendrick Davis transferring from SMU over to Memphis. He has been one of the leading scorers in the country, I think, for Penny Hardaway, and he is also a very good facilitator. I could see him doing some damage in March Madness. And I actually have 2 guys from the Big East that I want to give big time mentions to. One, a Kentucky transfer that went to the Providence Friars. Bryce Hopkins has been an absolute bucket and has actually helped Providence surprise a lot of people this season because Providence is super good. They've been performing really well in Big East play, and Bryce Hopkins is a big reason why. I think he has had a major impact on that team and in the Big East League. Also in the Big East, Solly Boom, a very underrated transfer pickup. Whenever I see people talking about the best transfer acquisitions and the impact that they've had, I don't see them mentioning Solly Boom. But Solly Boom for Xavier transferred over from UTEP, the UTEP Miners, and was not expected to be this good, but he is averaging around 17 points per game, a good facilitator and a good rebounder as well. I'm pretty sure he's averaging around 17, 4, and 4. Very good guard, one of the best guards, and one of the most underrated players in the country. I think Solly Boom, underratedly so. I wanted to give him a mention here for this question. Thank you, Will ND, for that one. We got 2 more coming in here. One from my man, FAU Owls fan, and he says, can FAU make the Sweet 16 this year? I think with the right matchups, I could see Florida Atlantic definitely pulling off an upset in the first round. Can they make the Sweet 16? I definitely think it depends on the matchups. If they have to face a 4 seed in Marquette in the second round or a very strong 4 seed like TCU, I don't see it happening. I don't see them beating a strong 4 seed like Marquette or TCU, but with the right matchups, I could see it happening. I'm going to say no right now, though, because the 4 seeds are pretty strong. But I could definitely see FAU with the right matchup getting at least one win in March Madness. And our last one, not really a question, but just kind of a take that this guy said. Videos for Fun is his name. And he said, Purdue will fall off again like last year. So, like I said, not really a question, but something I thought was interesting enough to put here with the questions and talk about a little bit. And I'm going to talk about it like it is a question and say, will Purdue fall off like they did last year? Well, I don't think necessarily they fell off last year. Interestingly enough, they've actually been more consistent this year than they have been last year. So yeah, they lost in the Sweet 16 to St. Peter's. I guess if you consider that a fall off, I do think Purdue probably loses around the Elite Eight this season. I don't think, for some reason, something in my gut's telling me Purdue is not going to make the Final Four this season. I think they will find their match. And if the shooters around Zach Edey are not making their shots, that could be all it takes for a team to knock out the Boilermakers. So that is going to wrap it up for this podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe. If you guys are new, follow me on Twitter at SixManDanny. And like I said, if you guys want your question answered in next week's podcast, make sure anytime Wednesday next week, you head over to the community tab on my YouTube page and look for the post. It should be my most recent one that says, drop some questions for the Danny Hoops podcast and ask a really good question. You're almost guaranteed to get in the podcast. So make sure you guys do that. And yeah, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching.